Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to episode 27 of the Giant Zone. You've got, of course, your co-host here, Steve the Banker.
Going on.
And then, of course, you got yours truly, Fly Guy Carl. And we are joined tonight. We're changing things up a little bit for everybody tonight. As advertised, we have a very special fan. Given that the Giants are playing the Jets this weekend, we have a fan that's a very, very big Jets fan. And we thought it'd be a good idea to put him on the show and get a little scouting report of the Jets, what they run, who some of the key players are, and just do something a little different, provide you guys a little bit different content, but something that we think you all may like. And again, as I asked at the beginning of every show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you download our show, please give us a 5-star rating when you download it. It just helps us to continue to bring you different different shows, different content, so on and so forth. And of course, we thank you for your support. So without any further ado, I want to introduce tonight's guest, Mikey V. Mike.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show, my friend. We appreciate you having on and coming on, and we appreciate the time tonight and the information you're going to give us. So look, I'm going to tell you right now, Mike, it does you no harm to lie to us here. So you got to be honest with us tonight, buddy, okay?
I will do so.
All right. So Mike, what we like to do on each show here is before we get into this, we like to give the fans a couple seconds, just kind of give us a little background about yourself, just how you became a Jet fan, how long, and how that took place.
Well, yeah, and I think I probably have a more unique story than anybody you have ever asked about this before, and I guarantee you no one has said this. I've been a Jets fan since birth and have been watching a Jets as part of my family tradition since as far back as I can remember. My dad is a huge Jets fan and my mom is a huge Jets fan, so every Sunday we would watch the Jets, and I have vivid memories going back to the early days of Richard Todd, so I'm probably like around 4 years old at that time, so we're going way back. And I remember now, here's the part that you've never heard of before. I remember after one particular game, my mom or dad had asked me a question, something along the lines of, what'd you think of the guy from that other team? And as a toddler, maybe 4 to 5 years old, I was like, what other team? And my mom and dad were like, the team the Jets were playing. And I was like, the Jets are playing another team? Like, I thought there was only the Jets. I thought it was like the Jets show. And it was some kind of football where it was just being, some kind of scrimmage or people were being acrobatic and athletic. So that's how I kind of got suckered into becoming a Jets fan, because when I was young, I did not know there were any other NFL teams.
If only
by that point, I was in too deep and too late. And I suppose my parents could have liked another team, and I might have not had approximately 50 years of hard knocks and misery to this point. But that is how I became a Jets fan. It was watching them on TV and not realizing as a 4 or 5 year old that they were actually playing a different team.
I'll give you credit. That is unique. I
thought so.
You know what? In the past 26 episodes, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I have not heard that story.
I've not, or nobody owned up to it.
We're actually kind of speechless right now. So, Mike, what about, do you have any game day traditions that you like to follow, or anything special you do on game day?
Well, if I can go back just a little bit too, my dad had season tickets for the Jets from the time I was about like that 4 or 5 years old until after Steve and I graduated from college. And I'll age us here, Steve. We graduated college in 1995. We had tickets through the 1996 season. And that was the year that they went to PSLs, I think, with the following year after that. And my dad and I were just kind of like, do you want to keep going? And I was like, if you want to pay for the PSLs and tickets, I'll keep going with you. But other than that, maybe we have some different game day traditions. So I grew up going to approximately, having season tickets, 5 or 6 Jet games, a year. And usually we would go in, with spirits high, and we would come out holding our heads and asking who's got the Tylenol for the eventual headache. It wasn't bad for the 1 o'clock games, but the 4 o'clock games in the New Jersey Turnpike going back were very difficult. So now what we prefer to do is we prefer to get together with my dad. other members of my family, and just sit around, get something to eat, and complain about the execution of the offense in general for an extended period of time. But we are diehard Jet fans. We've had our few years of success here and there, but it has been a little bit of a rough going as of late. But I am looking forward to some brighter days. And as I think I had mentioned to Steve previously, I am looking forward to it. This time next year, we will be inducting 2 Jets into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, kicking off the next year, and hopefully that's pushing us off into the right direction.
What I have to be honest with you about is I appreciate the dry humor that you have in regards to your team. It's so refreshing to hear a non-Giant fan share that, especially with the hard times that we've had recently. So it's refreshing, and I can definitely appreciate that.
Well, Steve and I, Steve the banker and I go back quite some time, and we would give each other some good ribbing about Jets and Giants as we were younger. And at some point, I was like, "All right, Steve, you won. Like you have Super Bowls, and I have Joe Namath from before I was born. Doesn't change my passion for the Jets. Doesn't change how much I love them. But realistically, we know what we're dealing with. But I do see brighter days ahead for us."
So I have a question for both of you. And I was thinking about this watching the Giant game last night. And Mike, we're keeping you from a Jet game tonight, so I apologize. So
that's okay.
We'll roll as quickly as we can, so this way you can watch as much of that as you like. But have you been to any games in MetLife?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Steve, have you gone to any games in MetLife? Well, Steve's frozen right now. Okay. So you've been to games at the old Giant Stadium, and you've been to games in MetLife.
And Shea Stadium.
Shea Stadium. Okay. Wow. So, well, I got a name for you. AJ Dewey.
Stop. 1984. 2 interceptions of Richard Todd to end the AFC Championship game. Still wake up sometimes at night over it. We were so close. Yeah, interestingly enough, my second cousin played on the Dolphins that year too.
Wow.
Running back named Tommy Vigorito, a punt returner. So we had some mixed feelings in the family about that. But AJ Dewey, I have no mixed feelings for. Yep.
What school didn't the school he went to start with a P?
No, he went to Virginia. He went to University of Virginia.
What high school?
Oh, that I don't know. But he was a Northern Jersey guy like you.
Was it Pequannock?
I'm not sure of his high school.
I can't remember. I think it was a P. So I don't know why. Anyway, let me get back to my question before we kind of get into it. So MetLife just seems like it's got no atmosphere. It's just I don't want to say toxic, but it's horrible, right? Now, you went to games in Giant Stadium and both the Jets and Giants called it home, as did I. Steve, you did as well. And I've been to a couple Giant games, especially, I went to more when I lived in New Jersey. I haven't really been to any since I moved down here, but I'm going to be at one this upcoming year. Do you think it's because the lack of atmosphere at MetLife? Do you think it's because they both share a stadium? Or do you think it's the stadium itself? For instance, Giant Stadium, the seats were red. And I don't know, did they put green things on the seats for Jet home games?
Not on the seats, no.
Okay. But my point is Giant Stadium had a very strong atmosphere. It was red, white, and blue and stuff. So what do you think do you think the lack of atmosphere is because it's an independent stadium for both teams? Or and we're all sick of losing.
Yeah, my opinion, I think it's a couple of reasons. Number one, we need to get some better football taking place in the stadium. And then I think a fan base is going to follow and become enthused. But I would also suggest too, I agree with you that there's something lacking at MetLife. I think getting into the into the whole Meadowlands area right now is a little bit more difficult, and even the parking is more difficult. So you have some frustrated people just literally getting into the stadium. And I would also say that the noise is different. So I don't know if it's something in the way that the stadium was built compared to Giant Stadium, but it was much more raucous and loud. I think even with the smaller crowd, when you were in Giant Stadium, you could sometimes feel it, feel the energy right there. And a couple times that I have been to MetLife Stadium, I haven't quite felt that. Now, again, that being said, with my dry sense of humor, it has been the Jets over the past few years. So it hasn't been, there hasn't been a lot of meaningful football, unfortunately, being played. But I think your point is well taken. I don't think it has to do with the sharing of the stadium. You know, you guys are big brother, we're little brother. At some point, little brother grows up and smacks around big brother. But right now, we'll take our lumps right there. But I do think just the quality of the football, as well as the design of the stadium itself, I think does hurt. And I've also been to a few concerts there as well. And I would say the same thing. There is something, I think, in the way that the acoustics are set up in that stadium that it just doesn't lend itself to the experience that I had in Giant Stadium.
Maybe it's too open. Maybe they went too wide with it. I don't know. Steve, any thoughts on it?
No, the teams both suck. So yeah.
But Mike, you mentioned the key word there. We're bigger brother, you're little brother.
Yeah.
You just earned an invitation back to another show.
Thank you.
All right,
if the Giants go to the Super Bowl, they could place at Jones Beach. I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Show me
You're
someone
right.
in football. You know.
You're right. All right, so kind of let's get into this scouting report for Giants fans, okay? Let's start with some strengths and weaknesses. Why don't you give us some strengths? And I know I'm setting myself up for a one-liner there, but give us some strengths that you see with this Jets roster this year.
Well, I think we have a lot of young talent, so I am happy for the future. I'm also excited to see some of what we have this year. As far as immediate strengths, one of the matchups that I'm looking for with the Giants, I don't know how much time Saquon Barkley is going to get. I know he's improving his health and coming back, but I would really like to see if he's able to penetrate past the Jets D line and into his line and into the linebackers and what that linebacking core can do. CJ Mosley has had a lot of rest over the past couple of years, and I think he is going to surprise some people this year. Quan Alexander getting on board too, I think is going to be he's going to be a stud there, along with Quinn Williams as well. So I really like, I think it's underrated what the linebacking core is going to be able to do, and even the front of that defensive line, I think has some possibilities as well. You know, the Jets have a lot of, like I said, young talent. So it's hard to say what their strengths are right now, because a lot of it is, I'm projecting a lot of hope on there too. But as far as on the other side of the ball, I like Breece Hall a lot. I think if we have a strength coming up right away, we're having a tough time with our O-line now. We need to put some guys, get some guys healthy really fast. But what I like about Breece Hall is if you watch that Eagles game, all of his yards were after contact. Now, I think he only got about 10 carries that game, but that tells me something, that every time you're getting hit, you're still moving forward. And I think that's something new that the Jets have not seen in a while. So it's tough when you are an underachieving team to say, what are the strengths of your team? We don't have a whole heck of a lot, which is why we haven't been in the playoffs in a while. But I like our linebacking core. I like some of the pieces that we have on defense. And when our O-line is healthy, I think we're going to be able to run. And the other thing that I would say too is a real scouting report for the Jet Giant game specifically. I think you guys are going to wrap a lot of people up in bubble wrap early and put them on the side with the injuries. And this tends to be, no matter who the head coach was and no matter how much they downplay it, this tends to be more of a Super Bowl situation for the Jets than it is for the Giants. So I actually expect the Jets starters to play a little bit longer than the Giants starters do. And I think that's where, I hate to say it, I think that's where one of our strengths for this particular game is going to be, is putting your backups in there against some of our starters for a longer period of time. And if that's not an advantage, it'd be tough for me to pick out what else it is. Maybe third or fourth string versus the starters. But that's kind of where I see the game going at this point.
You mentioned CJ Mosley. He led the team in tackles last year, did he not?
Yes, he did.
Do you expect him to do that again this year?
I think just for the natural part of the position, I expect that he does, but he may be that solid player in the middle. And that's why I'm interested to see what Saquon Barkley does, because I think he'll be kind of, I don't want to say shadowing him because that's the incorrect term, but I think he'll be following him around the field as much as he possibly can. So ultimately, will he get the most tackles? Likely, but there are a few other candidates that I think could end up having more tackles for loss, obviously get in the backfield a little bit more. We have some young defensive ends and edge rushers who are impressing me. Now, keep that in mind. We're 1 week into preseason, and I'm saying they're impressing me, but I see some potential and hope there. But CJ Mosley, keep in mind, he was a little injured last year, and the year before that, the COVID year, he sat out. Right. And then the year before that, he got injured in the first game of the year. So he should be fully rested and ready to go. And I do expect a big year out of him and to continue leading the team in tackles.
Mike, you just talked about your front seven. You talked about defensive ends and linebackers. When you talk about defensive ends and young talent, I think most Giant fans are aware of Jermaine Johnson. Everybody was watching his fall in the first round. Mind-blowing how he dropped to the bottom of the first. You guys were, everybody, I mean, most Giant fans agree, like the Jets had a brilliant, just truly brilliant draft. Time will tell, but he's not even, when you and I text, he's not even the defensive end you're most excited about.
Yeah. And I said this before or I don't know if I said it before the last game or right after the last game, but I said it at draft time too. Michael Clemons is going to be a stud. And I don't know if you've heard it here first, but you're going to hear it here. He was a later round draft pick out of Texas A&M. He went to a junior college and then transferred into Texas A&M. He ended up getting the 5th year in there because of the COVID exemption, but he is impressing at camp, and he's getting into the backfield in both scrimmages and in the game against the Eagles. The other thing that I like about him too, although he's a rookie, a lot of times too, I'm concerned with guys who come out earlier. And I think that there's just something about maturity levels and physical growth. You know, when you're in your 20s, you're still growing, you're still putting on muscle. And Michael Clemons is 25 years old. So he's not a 21-year-old who's coming into the NFL. He's fully grown. He's a man. And if you see him at his press conferences, the guy is jacked and he's fast. And he had an impressive debut against the Eagles. And what I liked best about him was his attitude, because he was I don't know if you guys get to see any Jets press conferences out here, but people asked Mike Clemons about his performance, and his simple answer was, "I'm not satisfied." So I love that. I love that kind of attitude. Somebody who's not caught up in the bright lights in big city and, hey, look what I did in one preseason game. He's like, I can be better. And to see it on that kind of frame and with that kind of push that he's getting on the D line, I think he could be a stud. I am happy with Jermaine Johnson too. Don't get me wrong, but we have about 4 young edge rushers who are competing for positions right now. That one of them may end up on an extra team. Now you can't have too many edge rushers, but depending on how many people Robert Saleh carries at each position, somebody might be an odd man out. But I can tell you one thing: it's not going to be Michael Clemons.
Well, Saleh, if I remember him in San Francisco, his whole concept when he ran the defense there was rotating guys, defensive linemen, keeping them fresh. And you guys had Carl Lawson hurt all of last season, I think, right? Yeah,
we had multiple people hurt all last year, which is another issue that I have too. So watching the defense, watching that front seven, watching who's able to pressure the quarterback is going to be very interesting, because somebody else got injured last week or this week in practice too, an edge rusher who was injured last year that they thought was going to make the team. And you have to forgive me, I'm tripping over my facts like Daniel Jones trips over 20-yard lines. I can't remember his name.
Oh, here we go. There we go.
But yes, I think Saleh not being the defensive coordinator still has that mindset though, that the more fresh bodies you can have on that line, the better it can be. And the fact that we have a bunch of young people really kind of excites me.
So listen, Carl, before I kick it back to you, one last thing I wanted to drill down. Mike, so you talked about your strengths, you talked about the defense, you talked about the front seven. Giant fans love the front seven.
Mhm.
You talk about these young edge guys. I think as Giants fans, most of us, at least I'm speaking for myself, Carl, I don't know about you. I don't know a lot about the Jets secondary. Here's what I know.
Mhm.
I feel like you and I have been joking since we were in college almost years ago that it seems like the Jets are always taking a safety
Yes.
high in the draft. They're always looking for, the days of Revis Island are gone. They got Sauce. We all know that. I think Giants fans were all like, but I don't know much else. So as Giants fans, tell us what we need to know about this Jets secondary level set, and then also what we might see this week in the scrimmages and in the preseason game.
Yeah, I think that's the area of concern that I have for the Jets, particularly when they keep drafting. It seems like safeties year after year. We seem to lose them. Now, don't get me wrong. The Jamal Adams trade worked out great for the Jets, and Jamal Adams wanted to go play for a playoff team. I don't see Seattle in any way, shape, or form making the playoffs, and we got Elijah Vera Tucker out of that deal as well as somebody else. But I think the safeties have a lot to prove. Corner has a lot to prove. The only thing that I feel confident in right now, and I wasn't even happy with the pick. We were texting at the time when they picked Sauce. I thought that they had gone for a different need somewhere. And all the reports out of camp is that he is that shutdown corner. He can have his own island. You were right, Steve. And he's someone who can really grow. He also seems to have the moxie.
You see why we're friends.
Yeah. He also seems to have the moxie and the leadership. So when they played the Eagles, what I really liked was I was looking in the game to hear Sauce's name called. I didn't hear him called. And honestly, that's what I want out of my corners. I don't want to hear you during the course of the game, because you know what it means. You're like Elvis Patterson. You're like toast or something. You're burned.
This is your fault, Steve. This is your fault, Steve.
And this is the only negative I've seen from Sauce right now is, we're playing the Eagles, I think the Falcons right now. So we were scrimmaging with them all week. And what I expect them to do with the Giants, and looking at the secondary, I don't know what kind of scheme they're going to run in the secondary, but whoever is out there as your number one receiver, I think they're going to put Sauce one-on-one against him and see what he's up to. They did this in the scrimmage. They moved Sauce over Kyle Pitts. And unfortunately, one of the highlights of the scrimmage for the Falcons is Sauce got smoked. Pitts ran right by him and got a long TD pass. But, it's a scrimmage. It's preseason. We'll have to see. I think he's the real deal. But you heard me speaking about the front seven as the strength, because right now I do not see the secondary as the strength. They're still fighting to see who's going to be in what position. And I think only Sauce has solidified his position.
Thank you. Gotcha.
That's interesting. So let's go to the offense for a minute here. You got some good young receivers.
Yeah.
Why don't you just kind of quickly go through the receiver room and give us a little scattering report on what's going on there? Sure.
I think we have a more impressive receiving crew than anybody thought looking from last year coming into this year. At our one is going to be Elijah Moore, and I'm going to recommend him for both fantasy and my dark horse pick to be a Pro Bowler this year. I like everything that's coming out of camp with him. I think he's going to be a true stud, and he's going to be our number one. He's going to be known as a real number one. Corey Davis, who got signed to a pretty decent contract last year and then was hurt, I think still comes in at our number two. But Garrett Wilson, I think, is right behind him. Garrett Wilson, it was interesting. He had an interview this week talking about the difference with Joe Flacco throwing the ball versus Zach Wilson. He didn't say anything bad about Zach Wilson, but it was kind of like a backhanded compliment about Joe Flacco, talking about that Flacco throws balls that are easier to catch. So that lets me know that he's already in rhythm, at least to a certain extent with him. And then I really like too, going down to our fourth receiver, and I know he wasn't all pro at this position, but my fourth receiver now of the Jets was all pro last year. I'm talking about Braxton Berrios, who is like the little engine that could. He reminds me a lot of Wayne Corbett lining up in the slot. It's third down. You got to get him the ball. I don't understand why teams don't double team him at a certain point, and obviously he brings a lot of extras to the game. And the person I'm most concerned. So I feel we got a true number one on the Jets. I feel we have good complementary receivers then too. But Denzel Mims, I am disappointing. I think there's a lot of talent to be had there, but for some reason it's not all coming together. And I would say that out of those, 5 receivers that I mentioned, I didn't even touch on the tight ends, but I just looking at wide receivers there, Denzel Mims is 5th on the list. And that being said, going into the game, and you guys tell me to, if I'm talking too much, that's fine. I expect that you're going to see a lot of 3 to 4 receiver sets going out there, because I think what's going to happen early is I think the Jets are going to give the ball to Breece Hall, see what he can do. I don't expect him to get a ton of carries for the game. But then with Zach Wilson being out, I think they're going to want to establish some kind of rhythm in their passing game, getting that moving forward too. So I would not be surprised that they put a lot of receivers on the field, try to create some mismatches just to see what could happen.
You touched on this position very quickly, so let's just give us a quick overview. What do you think of Zach Wilson? Tough year last year.
Yeah.
Right now, have you seen enough to make you say, yeah, I think this is going to be the guy, or are there still some questions?
And do you care who he's dating? Because
yeah, I was glad recently when he called, my mom sent his phone number to voicemail. So I don't have to be dealing with that at this point. But as far as it goes to Zach Wilson, I think, and I'm not jesting about this one, I think my questions about Zach Wilson are probably the same that yours are with Daniel Jones at this point. Now, granted, Daniel Jones is a couple of years in, but I think Giants fans are still asking themselves, is he the guy? And I think that the general answer when you're asking, is your quarterback, is he the guy, is you don't really know yet, and you don't know at this time. Now, I think you have to give Zach Wilson sort of a pass on last year between the injuries and honestly it not being a very good team. But this year he's got to make that sophomore jump. The injury I think is going to be tough, and I know what they said, the surgery was successful, and the optimistic reports are 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know if I'd want to rush him back on a knee injury in 2 to 4 weeks, particularly if you're looking at some of the defenses that he might be running into. Or I may be off about the schedule at that point, but I wouldn't rush him back. I am a proud University of Delaware Fighting Blue Hen. And the guy behind me in the bobblehead on this side too, Joe Flacco right now is our starting quarterback. And I am, if Garrett Wilson, who's a rookie, is coming out and saying, I catch the balls better from Joe Flacco, I'm saying, I don't think we need to rush Zach Wilson back. I will be talking about our overall schedule later. I don't see us as a playoff team probably this year, and I want to see everybody develop. So if that means sitting Zach Wilson for 4 to 6 weeks rather than 2 to 4, I would rather see that. Specifically, I have concerns about Zach's accuracy and his ability to stay in the pocket. I think most young quarterbacks are seeing that nowadays, is I can make something happen with my legs. And I think Steve has told me on many an occasion, defenses figure that out eventually, the running quarterbacks. You've got to be able to sit in the pocket. You've got to be able to read the defenses, and you've got to be able to deliver. So the fact that I haven't seen that yet he's got the arm strength. And I think he can handle the New York media. I think he's right in there. I think he's got the moxie. And I do think he has the potential. So I don't want this to come across like I'm bashing Zach Wilson, but have I seen enough yet? He hasn't even played 16 games yet. So I just don't know.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, and to your point, we Steve and I and a lot of Giant fans, we have the same questions about Daniel Jones. Look, this is his proven year, and when people truthfully ask us, well, is he the guy? We really can't. It's an incomplete. That's the answer. Injury, a bad roster around him, and some bad decisions on his part too. Some not great play. So I get what you're saying there, and it sucks for us because we're 2 more years down the road than you are on that, and we still don't know. We're still hoping that he's the guy this year, or it's very simple. If he doesn't step up, he's not going to be the guy.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? It's too early to say. Do you think you can win with Zach Wilson? Because like you said, you haven't seen enough of it.
Dude, but to that point, if I see the degree of progress that I'm hoping for, even specifically just with some accuracy, I think the Jets are at a point where if people stay healthy, they've surrounded him and now with enough young talent. I mean, they have talent at running back. I went through the wide receivers. I think we're solid at tight end now. I think we need to be healthy on the O-line. So I think when the O-line gets healthy, truly, in my opinion, the question is going to be about Zach Wilson. Like it should be a plug and play. Like if you're going to be a good quarterback over the next 2 years, you should be winning with the Jets. Just how I feel.
Yeah. Steve, what else? What other questions do you have for Mike?
So let's stay on that then, Mike. You talked about his ability to stay in the pocket, how you and I used to talk about running quarterbacks. And in order to stay in the pocket, we all know what that means, right? Like you got to have an offensive line. We remember the draft with the 4 great tackles. We took Andrew Thomas. You guys took Makai Beckton, obviously Tristan Wirfs. And I mean, everybody remembers that amazing draft with those tackles. And we had a rough rookie year with Andrew, but he's turned into one of the better young tackles in football. And that's just not hyperbole. I mean, that's his play. So we have very high expectations for him this year. And I feel for you, man. Yes, we can joke around about Giants and Jets and our rivalries, but I mean, nobody wants to see a guy. That guy was a special player when he was healthy as a rookie. So 2-part question. You guys went out and got Dwayne Brown, right? You did what you had to do, and a lot of teams don't pony up and spend the money, and you guys did. So A, how's he looking? How is the Band-Aid going on the offensive line? And part 2 of that is, what do you think is going to happen? What do most Jets fans think? What do you think is going to happen with Makai Beckton?
Yeah, let me do that in the reverse and talk about Makai Beckton first. I am still convinced that at the time, Beckton was the better tackle being picked in the draft there, and I think that their rookie year, I think Beckton was the better. I know we exchanged some film or went back and forth. I think he was the better blocker, but now, 2 years of injury, it does not look like the better pick, regardless of how well that you can block in a particular scheme or even one-on-one on a person. So the thing about injuries, yes, and you hate to see that. The one thing that really bothered me was there were reports all off season that Beckton was north of 400 pounds. And that's a problem. And I understand that big guys are big. I get it. But I just don't think that the human body can put so much pressure on individual joints over time. And I know he has some kind of weird kneecap issue, which is, medically not common. But I also don't think that having that extra weight during the off season helps. So I hope he comes back. I'm praying for the guy. I want to see him come back slimmer and being able to do what he does. But it's now going to be almost 2 full seasons that he's going to be out. And it would not surprise me if Makai Beckton goes down in Jets lore as one of those draft picks who just never worked out. Being a Jets fan, obviously I'm into football, but I just want him to be healthy, be able to make a living for himself and his family and everything to, prove me wrong. I just don't know how hard it is to rehab that kind of knee injury when you're that big. So that being said, the Jets did make the right move in getting Dwayne Brown. Of course, they could have signed him 2 days before Beckton got hurt, probably at a much cheaper price. I don't even know off the top of my head what the price on him was. But he's a proven player. He played 16 games last year. I know he's got, I think, the same amount of years in the league. But that class of 2008 is still doing very well for the Jets. There's only in that first round of 2008. I could be wrong about that, but there's very few players left in the league who are going to be starters on day 1 of this year. And the Jets are more than likely going to have 2. Joe Flacco under center and Dwayne Brown protecting his blind side. So that draft class of 2008 is going to be big. We have some other good pieces on the offensive line, but losing Beckton is huge. And let's face it, Dwayne Brown, as you had said, good player. I'm going to be happy to see him there. Is a Band-Aid. You're not in the league 16 years, and you're not going to be the foundation off of what is built. So it'll be interesting to see what we have to do next there.
Now, talk to me about the friction, if there is, maybe I'm using the wrong term, that exists between Beckton and the organization, because he was drafted to play left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
He started as a left tackle,
Mm-hmm.
got hurt, and I guess they were underwhelmed with him at some point. I don't know if it was because of injury or because of play. And then he's now moved to the right, and now he's hurt. So is this a possibility of an injury settlement and they just say, thank you, we're done with you? Or are they going to give him a chance to rehab this and come back next year? Hopefully, hey, we weren't happy with the condition you came in. We think that's part of why you got hurt. This is what we want you to do next. So how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I certainly hope they do give him a chance because, getting back to, what I'd spoken about with Steve a couple of years ago, I do think that Beckton has natural skills and talent. There's no doubt about that. And he knows how to block. I do believe that he was moved from the blind side to the other side because of what the Jets, and I don't have any firsthand information, but what they saw as issues of his weight, honestly, and the work ethic. And I think that they were validated by that in this offseason. There are some guys out there who are killers. I mentioned Michael Clemons before, and in 2 years, who knows where we're going to be. But if you look at that guy, that's a guy who is doing everything that he possibly can to take care of his body, and he's gonna tear up the league. If Makai Beckton did that with his body at his size, I mean, he would be impossible to get around. I would put him up against anybody. But I think a lot of the friction started seeing that he wasn't taking care of himself, and that the Jets realized that that's not going to be good. And if you're going to be protecting the face of the franchise, we need somebody who's as good in that position as what we're expecting out of our quarterback. So I think it was kind of a decision that, hey, we just drafted a new quarterback. We need somebody who we know is going to be in shape to protect him. And we're not sure that that's Makai Beckton, and they ended up moving him to the right side.
Wow. And one last one for me. So we've touched on it quickly. Give us an overview of the tight ends, because you made some moves this offseason at the tight end. You drafted very well, and you also brought in some players. So what are your thoughts there?
They drafted the guy that I wanted. Baby.
Yeah,
We're happy. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, we did get a New Jersey boy coming home who actually grew up a Jets fan, which was nice because, like I said, there's there's not many of us out there. So if you are a Jets fan and you get to play for them someday, maybe you can be a part of the solution instead of a part of the problem. But getting Uzoma and Conklin, I think we're big signings, and we actually have a big competition for. I'm pretty sure we're going to carry 4 tight ends, and there's 3 other guys who are pushing for it. And the guy that I like as the 4th tight end is Trevor Wesco. I think you'll see a decent amount as the game goes on. I think you'll see a decent amount of time with him, but I think all 4 of those tight ends are going to be getting some time. But getting back to the signings, that's what I mean that with Zach Wilson, when Zach Wilson comes back healthy, if that offensive line gels, which is a big if, there's no excuses anymore. I mean, and I hate to say that for a second-year guy, but really, you've got a backfield with somebody who I think is going to be a star in Breece Hall, and you've got a good person who can either pick up blocks, but I'd like to see him going in the flat a little bit more, in Michael Carter to make some moves.
He's a nice running back.
What's that?
Michael Carter's a good running back.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 weapons in the backfield. I went over the top 5 receivers like I said, when you go down the list to your 4th wide receiver, if your 4th wide receiver, I don't care what position he made all pro at, you got some good receivers there. And now you're bringing in 2 tight ends who had productive seasons, and you drafted a stud tight end, and then you're going to have a 4th tight end to be carried on the team. The offense should be set. So I would imagine that they're going to use the tight ends a little bit more. I have no inside information on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some 2 tight end sets lining up. And then if they were both running routes, trying to get out there for some passes. I do think the Jets need to get in sync with their passing game with Flacco pretty early on.
Mike, can you just dig a little deeper on that? And if there you don't have a lot opinion wise, it's okay too. But as Giants fans, we've been through hell and back with our offensive system, our offensive coaching, and this year has just brought a tremendous excitement to Giants fans, not only with our general manager, Joe Shane, our head coach, Brian Dable, but now having the offensive system in place, we hope from what we've seen already, that's just a modern, creative offense that puts guys in position for success, spreads guys out, puts them in space, mismatches, creativity, pre-snap motion. These are all things that I think a lot of fans around the league are like, well, yeah, of course. But as Giants fans, we're like, oh my God, we were living in 1972 offense. So tell us a little bit about your offensive coordinator, the offensive scheme the Jets have. I didn't watch a lot of the Jets last year.
Yeah.
I usually just watch highlights. Actually, the Barrios, the receiver you're talking about, when he would, take a return for a touchdown or something like that. But when we watch Jets Giants highlights, the scrimmage, when we watch the game this weekend, what's the Jets offensive scheme?
I think I could have answered this question a little bit earlier, I think before Zach Wilson went down, and I think they're trying to find that right now, but it is a copycat league. And I think some of the things that you just mentioned for the Giants are some of the things that you're going to see from the Jets as well. I think there's going to be a lot of formations trying to spread people out. I think there's going to be some routes that are going to try to confuse your secondary, but I don't know if they're 100% sold on what their offensive identity is going to be. I think they are being more creative, but if Breece Hall starts to, this could be a changing of the guard here. You're talking about the Giants in 1972, but if Breece Hall is able to continue to get yards after contact, I mean, we could see kind of a role reversal here where are the Jets going to start to use the run to set up the pass? I'm looking forward to, I was going to say, to tonight's game, which is happening right now, to actually see what they do and to see what they do against the Giants. Because although I could, make some guesses and everything, what I think you're going to see from the Jets against the Giants is what they're going to roll with. Because for the Giants, it's another scrimmage, it's another preseason game, and you're getting ready for your for the season. And for the Jets, it's a little bit more important. It's a shot for little brother to get in at big brother. So I wish I could be a little bit more specific for you than that, but I really don't know what we're going to see. I just hope it's good.
That 4 wide receiver spread scares me.
Yeah.
With our secondary, that I've got some serious concerns there.
Yeah.
I want to go back to tight end for a moment. Who's going to start?
It's a good question. I'm assuming that Uzoma is going to be the starter. I think he's probably the most polished from top to bottom, although long-term, Ruckert is the answer. I think he is going to end up being a better blocker. And certainly he can catch any passes that he needs to as well. But Uzoma has already here's why I kind of like him to, it's funny looking back at the Jets when like Rex Ryan was here, like everybody's the greatest, everybody's the best, everybody's the this, everybody's the this, that. Now Uzoma gave me some hope because he said he sees Zach Wilson, and again, even though I was cautious, making a similar kind of jump that Joe Burrow did last year with the Bengals. So the fact that somebody throws that, I saw your eye roll right there, but the fact that a new player to the team, throws something out there, that there's some red meat for the fan base and things along those lines. He's a good player, number one, but number two, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to Joe Burrow. So he must see something there for some positivity.
Is Ruckert healthy? Because he was going into the draft. I know he was injured, and that probably, scared some teams off. But I think his all-around talent as a wide tight end is undeniable. He can make shoes. He's your typical Ohio State tight end. They didn't use him a ton, but he makes shoestring catches. Excellent blocker. I mean, we loved him going into the draft. Carl and I, if he was, is he healthy? And are they kind of bringing him along slowly, you think? Or
Yeah, I haven't heard any reports about it, and I did check just so I knew what I was talking about here for the Jets injury report. If he is hurt, I missed him. But at draft time and even moving forward, there weren't any injuries of a significant nature that scared the Jets off of drafting him. I mean, he's a talent. And I think if you play the game of football, you're going to be injured at a certain point. We're not talking like Makai Beckton injury here. That's going to be something that's ongoing and lingering if he is banged up.
And it seems to me, given a young quarterback that you're still developing, that you want to continue to see come along, I would think your running backs are going to play a very important role in this offense as well, especially in the passing game. Check down, safety valve. So it seems like a lot of passes to the running backs is going to be very important here as well, or very prominent, I should say.
Yeah, and that's something. Steve's right. Michael Carter, I think, is a good running back.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But I'm really impressed with Breece Hall. I think he's going to end up being our starting running back at some point or another, sooner rather than later. But Michael Carter, still a good running back. But I also think he's going to end up being a better receiver out of the backfield than Breece Hall is. So what I can imagine is keeping Carter back in certain passing downs for what appears to be, disguising it as extra protection, chip on a blocker, but then get out to the flat. And I think he can be very, very dangerous when he's out in the flat, especially if you have 3 and sometimes 4 receivers out there trying to cause confusion. Even if your secondary shuts that down, if he's out in the flat, somebody is going to have to account for him. And he's probably faster than most linebackers are out there. So if you dump it off to him in the flat, maybe you get 6-7 yards and all of a sudden you're in business.
That reminds me of Dave Meggett. Remember him?
the first third down back in the NFL, the guy that created the concept of third down back.
Do I miss him?
And a hell of a punt returner.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Steve, do you have any other questions?
I'm just so happy, Mike, that you were able to join us, and this gives me now a foundation. I hope our fans and our listeners appreciate as well, like a lot more color around what we're going to hopefully see. You guys are having your second game right now. We just had our second, so I think for most fans, it's okay. Just let's make out of this healthy, right? Everybody's getting injured. I mean, God, Tampa Bay is getting decimated. I'm looking around the league every day, and there's teams with guys going down. So it's nice that we're finally going to have a scrimmage. I think that's where I heard somebody on the radio the other day. They said, you get more out of a scrimmage than you do the games, actually, because the scrimmages you can say, let's run that over 10 times.
Let's put it in a situation that we need to take a look at right now.
Yeah. So excited. It's a great tradition that the Giants and Jets play each other. It's a little bit of fun with our fans, and I appreciate this. Has been some really good color for us, I think.
Thank
And
you.
I echo that. I don't follow the Jets. Number one, I'm a Giant fan. I do read the Post. I try to read it every day, but definitely on the weekends. But to say I pay full attention to the Jet articles, I'd be lying. So I think you've given us some good insight, and we appreciate it. And this is fun because these are things for us to look at as Giant fans, to look for and to look at during the game, coming up this weekend. So thank you again, and I echo what Steve said. So to wrap up, Mike, what we normally do is we'll have Giant fans on the show naturally, and we'll go through the schedule with them to see, we'll game by game and get their predictions on it. So, given you're a Jet fan, I think we'll switch up this week. And since you and Steve are good friends, I'm going to let Steve go through the schedule with you this week, and let's see what you come up with. And if you go 17-0, I'm taking back your invitation.
Let me tell you something. You started with the AJ Dewey comment back in there, so that's still reverberating in my mind. So I'm definitely not going 17-0. In fact, I'm trying to pull up the schedule myself so we can see. But so you'll call off the team, Steve? Is that
so? Here's what we do. It's become a tradition on our show, like Carl said. I'm going to go through it one by one. You can just say win or loss, or you can give a little bit of a quick, rationale, and we'll see where things end up. So without further ado, the very first game of the season for the Jets, you guys are playing at home, 1 o'clock, Sunday, September 11th. You're playing Baltimore, the Ravens. Win or loss?
That is going to be a loss because Lamar will have signed a contract similar to Deshaun Watson, and he will be riding high knowing that he's got all that money, and it's going to be a tough one for the Jets.
Okay, so 0-1, but then you hit the road.
Yep.
Have a little fun, go out to Cleveland.
Yeah, get a massage while we're there, and the Jets will beat the Browns.
I love it. That third week, though, you come back to reality. Maybe you're playing Cincinnati at home.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. I mean, Cincinnati is the defending AFC champions. They're probably salivating over the Jets. I've got to go with 1 and 2 there.
And Joe Burrow should be back for that game too.
Yeah.
Next week, you're on the road at Pittsburgh.
I'm going to call for a surprise upset here. I am going to say that at this point, the Jets will be underrated, and it's a trap game for the Steelers, and the Jets will pull off the upset.
I like that. I'm calling out what you think, but I think that Jets front seven can give the Steelers and whoever they have at quarterback difficulty.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the Jets front seven is going to be strong, and if that's Kenny Pickett starting that game for Pittsburgh, although I don't know, he's looked much better than Mitch Trubisky, so I don't know. I can see it. I think Pittsburgh is going to take a step back this year. I do. So I go along with it.
All right. Then things heat up a little bit, Mike. You got a division opponent. You're playing at home against Miami.
We are going to win at home against Miami.
Oh, that's ballsy. I love it. I love it. I got no love down here for the Miami team, so I'm going to go with that. Week 6, Sunday, October 16th at Green Bay.
I mean, it's a loss. I was going to try and make some kind of Aaron Rodgers magic mushroom joke right here or something too, but let's just say going to Green Bay is a loss and move on.
I was just about to say, come on, tough guy, out with it. I saw you hesitate there for a minute.
All right. Well, I hope you kept that jock strap on, because then the next week you're playing at Denver.
Yeah, I actually like, Russell Wilson's on the back 9 of his career, but I actually like his move to the Broncos. And I think the AFC West is the best division in football. And I don't see the Jets getting out of there with a win. That's a loss.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is going to fascinate me. It's a division game. I think we all have an opinion about what's going on in New England right now. That next week you play at home, New England.
I hate the Patriots, and we'll say it's a win because I hate the Patriots.
No love lost here for that team. And for the record, the Giants just beat them in the preseason, so come on.
Yeah.
So, Mike, are you saying that because you expect New England to take a step back, or do you think the Jets are just going to be so up for that game that they're not going to lose that game? Because that game to me is like, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that game to me is like our Giants Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And we always seem to be competitive early, and then we just shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Do you see something similar, or how do you see this playing out?
No, I do see it similar, and good question right there too. I'm looking at this in a couple of different ways as I'm scrolling up and down my phone too. I see us getting whacked around by the Packers, and I see us getting whacked around probably by the Broncos in the previous 2 weeks. And I think the Jets at that point and Saleh have got to look for a silver lining right there too. And it's going to be to catch the Patriots on the downside, just like the Giants get up for Dallas, whether or not they play them well. I think the Jets get up for that game. Patriots are taking a step back. They're not going to be the Patriots that we remembered, and the Jets are going to win that game.
I like it. Okay. All right. So you got one more game, and then you guys can look forward to the bye. So after New England, you play at home against Buffalo. At home against Buffalo.
Well, that is actually my birthday. So do I ask the Jets for a birthday present? I certainly will, but there's no chance that they are going to beat Buffalo. Buffalo, I think, is one of the stronger teams in the AFC. I mean, I don't think it. They are on paper one of the stronger teams, and that one could get ugly.
All
I
right.
think we win the Super Bowl this year.
A lot of people. do.
Let's take a breather for a second.
Okay.
And that's week 10. It's the bye. You've had your birthday. You had a couple in you. And your team is 4-5.
Okay.
You're still in it, I
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
To me, as we go through now, as Carl likes to say, now it's time to strap up because I think this is the point of the season for you with the Jets that to me, this is the make or break of the season. If you can come into the bye somewhere near 500, like 4-5, even 3 wins. I mean, 3 or 4, ideally 4 wins, maybe 5 even. This stretch after the bye is going to make or break your season, right? So you come back from the bye well rested. You're at New England. Right back at it.
Yeah. My Jets have never traditionally played well after the bye. And I don't know if New England's on the same bye. I'm assuming that they are. And usually that's when Belichick does some of his best work. I am going to say that the Patriots get their revenge here and split the season series with the Jets.
Okay, so that makes you 4-6, and then you're home. You're back home to the comfy confines of Giant Stadium. What do we call it?
MetLife.
Yeah. Who did they have to pay for that? And then you're playing Chicago though.
We are beating Chicago.
Okay. Then you go right back on the road. Don't get comfortable. You guys are going out to Minnesota.
This is going to be a tough little stretch here. We are going to lose to Minnesota. I don't like that matchup for a few reasons, especially since it's on the road.
And you're going to stay on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have an easy one. You go right out to Buffalo.
And the Bills will sweep the Jets this year.
But you're going to lick your wounds and come home and play Detroit.
Yeah, now here's where it gets interesting because if I look ahead at the next few, these are all games that the Jets can take, but there's going to be one clunker in here. But it's not going to be against the Lions. The Lions is a win for the Jets.
Home against Jacksonville.
This is not going to be the clunker either. We are going to beat the Jaguars.
It's funny, Carl. They're playing the same opposite divisions we are. Like we're playing Jacksonville. It's interesting. So it kind of messed me up.
Yeah.
Then you are on the road, but don't fret. It's against Seattle.
We're on the road. It's on January 1st. Here's the clunker. As much as I don't want to see Geno Smith beat the New York Jets.
Wow.
I have to just say that there's going to be one clunker in here. And it's going to be a loss against the Seahawks on the road.
Wow.
I'm being realistic.
I think Seattle is going to vie with Atlanta to be top pick in the draft.
Yeah.
They might be, but just remember, you heard it here first. If the Jets go and lay an egg out in Seattle.
Wow.
Well, that would be the Jets.
Yeah.
Carl, can you imagine that, man? And then you stay on the road. You don't have to come home and answer your fans, and they go to Miami to close out the season.
I know this one worries me too, but now I'm psychologically picking here. Okay, so they lose the clunker to Seattle that they shouldn't lose. They've got one game left against a division rival with an improving team, and I'm saying Saleh has them up for that game, and they complete the sweep of the Dolphins for the year after losing to the Seahawks.
Wow.
So that, if by my account, I don't know if you've kept track.
I was not.
That would have you at 8 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got them there too.
That's improvement in my opinion, and I would be happy with that. Like I said, I don't think they're competing for a playoff spot, but hopefully that's because a lot of the young guys are developing, and I'm hoping by the end of the year my questions about Zach Wilson are answered going into the following year.
Well, let me ask you a question, and I'd have to look at the league, but what's interesting is I feel sometimes I don't know how much I enjoy this new playoff format from a couple of years ago where there's that extra wild card, because every year I feel like there's one team that you worry as a fan, like, oh, that team might make it. And they're like a 500 team or, how do you think as Jet fans though, you're going to feel about Robert Saleh if you guys have the regret of losing that Seattle game. If you had won it, you would have been 8-8, 9-8. And that might have been enough for a wild card. As crazy.
If all my other predictions were correct, that is true. But looking to ask your question, if we finish 8-9 under Robert Saleh, even if we drop a clunker or two, we're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
And then I think that the following year, it's like, are we now with 7 teams being able to get in the following year? Should we be one of those 7 teams with all the young talent we have? And the last thing I'll say about that is that I think ESPN ranked if you took all the teams and their 25-year-old players and less, like the Jets are ranked 3rd. So I would keep Saleh on happily with that crew of young kids if they were able to finish 8-9 this year. That being said, I have lived through Jet seasons that were 1-15, so you never know.
Do you think, Mike, as a non-Jet fan, every time I hear something about the Jets, I just think it's the Jets. So is this the year that they shake that, do you think?
No, I don't think this is the year that they shake that. I think that the story around the Jets at the end of this year, my ideal story is they're moving in the right direction. They're still the Jets. They still finished with a losing record. They still finished, maybe 3rd in their division. But hang on a second. We saw some flashes out there. And then maybe I'm hoping that the following year is the year that we say, hey, these guys aren't a doormat anymore.
So how do you see the AFC East finishing? It seems to me that you've got Buffalo, and then you have Miami, Jets, New England, or do you have Jets, Miami, New England?
I probably have. Well, I predicted that the Jets would sweep the Dolphins.
Yeah.
But I still think the Dolphins are going to end up finishing with a better record. I would love to see the Patriots in the bottom of the division, and I think they are regressing. I think there's a little bit of panic in New England. So
they don't even know who their offensive coordinator is.
Yeah. So I think that
two ding dongs.
I think that the Jets are going to finish 3rd in the division, but like I said, a strong 3rd, having beaten the Dolphins once or twice. I know here I said twice, but having beat the Dolphins once or twice, I just think the Bills are just way ahead of everybody else in that division.
I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I really do.
Oh, what year think they're going to win it? Wow, good prediction.
I do. I think they're really good. I think they're that good this year.
Yeah.
We'll see. Steve, anything else from you?
I'm good, man. I'm happy.
Yeah, Mike, this was great. We really appreciate this. Was a little bit of a change for us, and you made us feel comfortable with it, and we really appreciate it. We really enjoy you coming on here, and we appreciate the banter.
Awesome.
Especially the dry humor. I love that personally, and we wish you a lot of luck this year. Not too much, Still want to be big brother, but hope you have a good year and hope everything goes well for you. And again, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate this. Thanks
a lot, guys. I really enjoyed it, and would love to come back sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Well, it's not going to be for the playoffs, I'll tell you that. But anyway.
That is likely. Come back next year. Come back this time next year.
That's fine. And, we'll do this again before the preseason scrimmage next year. That's fine.
That sounds good.
Steve, good job as always tonight.
You too, brother.
Guys, thank you so much. Have a great night. Everybody, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Take care. Have a good day. Oops, sorry, guys.